Yesterday, I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but first of all, I want to send my prayers and condolences to the family and friends of Sid Udi. For a lot of people that don't know who Sid Udi is, he was a professional wrestler that I grew up watching, called by numerous names, but most notably for fans like me, he was known as Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, and Sycho Sid. Now, what some people may not know is that Sid actually started in the Mid-South and Dallas areas as well. He started as Lord Humongous. He would wear this hockey mask, and other big men have taken on this persona. Even Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, has took it on at one point. I think even Kevin Nash had took it on. But Sid was, I think, the first one to do it, or second one to do it after the original, like the second one to do it. Believe it or not, you can actually find this online too. He competed in WCCW against Kerry Von Erich. He was managed by I think I can't think of his name. His name it wasn't Sheikh Adnar Casey, General Adnar. No, it was Akbar, Sheikh Akbar, I believe, General Akbar. He was managed by him. In WCCW, and he was the CWA heavyweight champion, which I think worked with WCCW at that time. And then he went to WCW. He went to WCW, teamed up with Dan Spivey, who was no stranger to tag team wrestling, believe it or not, because he was part of the second iteration of the U.S. Express after Barry Windham left. Who teamed with Mike Rotunda, I should say. But yeah, he's no stranger to that. So Sid Vicious teamed up with Spivey and became the Skyscrapers, managed by Teddy Long. And I'll tell you this, if nobody knew who Dan Spivey was before then, they knew him, they got to know him at that moment, because basically being part of the Skyscrapers, he, along with Vicious, were able to reinvent themselves into being natural badasses. Basically, people that went in there and kicked your teeth down your throat, if you know what I mean. And they came off as intimidating. They were pushed to the moon against the likes of the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom, and so on. Vicious was part of the Horsemen, one of the iterations of the Horsemen. He feuded with Sting on numerous occasions, including a very notable match at one of the early Halloween Havocs. This was the Halloween Havoc. I think it was the Halloween Havoc. It was his last Halloween Havoc, actually. Now that I think about it, it was the last one. But it was the Halloween Havoc in 1990, where he basically, I think it was 1990, where basically the ropes were all striped. Basically the ropes were the Tigger ropes, if you know what I mean. But anyway, he feuded with Sting then he went to WWE, WWF at the time, later on in 1991, as a babyface called Sid Justice. He was brought in as a special referee for the Match Made in Hell handicap match. No one, and here's what was interesting, even with his assignment as special referee, no one knew exactly where he stood, because he basically told not just Slaughter and his crew that, hey, I ain't going to take no guff from you, and I'm going to call it the way I see it and stuff like that. He also did the same to Hogan and Warrior. So, so that was kind of intriguing to see somebody to where you knew he was being brought in as a babyface, but he didn't totally play the babyface, if you know what I mean. But anyway, he was brought in as a babyface at first. Initially his first feud was going to be with Jake Roberts and Undertaker, but then he got injured legitimately, so couldn't do that. He came back, in time for the Rumble. Actually did a very babyface I guess you could say moment. He did a very babyface moment, or had a babyface moment, when he eliminated Hulk Hogan from the '92 Rumble and everything. And you would think, okay, the way Hogan eliminated him, it would turn Hogan heel. But that didn't happen because Vince McMahon was still in that mindset of we can't do Hogan being heel. So Justice is the one that went heel. Everybody remembers him walking out on Hogan doing the match on Main Event, and then what he did at the barber shop. And then, of course, he main evented WrestleMania 8 with Hogan, and he was supposed to have a program with the Warrior, who came back that night as well. That didn't happen. Both were gone from the company. Sid did some independence, then took a break for a while, came back in '93 to WCW, wrestled there for a while, then left again, took a break, then came back in '95 to WWF as a heel, as a bodyguard for Shawn Michaels. And then he turned his back on Shawn Michaels after WrestleMania that year, thus Shawn turning babyface. Then he joined the $1 Million Corporation, then he disappeared, then he came back the following year as a babyface, a very over babyface, basically the very first I guess you could say anti-hero babyface, if you will, before even Stone Cold. And this was enough to basically have Vince be like, okay, we got to put the belt on him finally, and he did. He won it twice because I think he lost it to Shawn. He lost it to Shawn at the Rumble later on in '97, but he lost it to Shawn in San Antonio at the Rumble in January of '97. Then he won it back from Bret Hart, who won it in a battle royal or something. Oh, not a battle, but a fatal four-way. He won it in a fatal four-way. It was because it was vacated. He won it the next night, the following night on Raw. Then he lost it to Undertaker. Then he sticked around for a while. He actually made a one-off appearance teaming up with Austin and the Patriot and Shamrock against the Hart Foundation in '97, and that was it. Then he went to ECW and was over big there. He was over big there for a cup of tea or something like that. And then he went back to WCW, aligned with Macho Man, had a memorable feud with Goldberg that got him over, made him into a babyface. And then, of course, you had that unfortunate situation at WCW Sin 2001. But then, through a lot of rehab and a lot of surgeries, he was able to get back on his feet, get back into wrestling part-time, independence, made an appearance, on WWE as part of the march to WWE's Raw 1000. And yeah, he had quite the run, and he had some memorable moments. And he is one of those talents that, when you look back on him, he is just unforgettable in his presence. And again, he is one of those people that is, that was anti-hero before the likes of Stone Cold was. And that is just something to see. And he's also one of those very few people that he could adapt to any era, any time frame of wrestling. He's able to adapt, but he didn't have to adapt change himself totally. He just had to tweak a little bit, and, that was it. Because he always came off with a badass. So yeah, he's a great competitor. Unfortunately, I never got to see him in person, but watching him on television, he just had that presence about him. And that's all I can really say. So, my condolences go out to his family and friends, prayers and, condolences and all that. And thank you, Sid, for the memories. You will never be forgotten. And WWE, Hunter, if I'm you, get him into the Hall of Fame right away. Make his introduction announcement very soon. It's well deserved.